Good evening, everyone. It's April the 7th, 2025 on a Monday, and we are gathered once again to put truth into the macro and to solidify our energy for change. I want to ask you if you have any questions about anything we've discussed or anything else that just crossed your mind. No questions.
Pastor, I have a question. It might not be. Have anyone ever looked up the name of King Nebuchadnezzar and what
Yes,
it name means?
I did. Nebuchadnezzar comes from a root word that means to perish. It speaks to, well, the whole story of Nebuchadnezzar speaks to how power and greed can corrupt. It also speaks to humility and pride. There were aspects of Nebuchadnezzar's life where humility was expressed. However, when we look at it from the third chapter of Daniel, we began to see that it was a bit different in that Nebuchadnezzar was the one who put the three Hebrew boys into the fiery furnace, and subsequently, the voice of God spoke to Nebuchadnezzar, telling him that he would lose his kingdom, and there would be a kingdom established in the earth by the Creator itself, a kingdom that would never perish. And Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom would never rise again. So, what does all of that mean when we look at it spiritually? The day will come when the leadership in a nation would falter because of greed and have every opportunity to show humility, but would not do it. Rather than humility, it actually became more prideful and more corrupt. And as we know, pride comes before the fall. And that's what happened in this case. The energy of leadership was was greedy and prideful, and then the fall. And then the humility came after that. And after the humility, again, the pride took over. So the lesson that I see to be learned here is that when the leadership, when the energy of leadership becomes prideful and feels like it is able to do whatever it chooses to do outside of the realm of the Creator, and begins to do it according to a God that it has brought into existence, i.e., Christianity, Islam, etc. The day will come when that leadership, that energy will be exposed, and the exposure of it would show you that it has a reprobate mind. And accompanied, this reprobate mind being accompanied by arrogance and pride. I don't think that your question when it came the other week was one that came from flesh and blood at all. And the reason I say that is because we are living in an era of this type of energy that was um, that was described by telling the story of Nebuchadnezzar. If we look at where we are now, the energy of pride and arrogance and greed and corruption is in total control of everything in our environment, or so it appears to be. And as a result of that, people are cowering and others simply don't know what to do. And then there are those who are waiting because the Creator has instructed them to wait and see the hand of the Lord move, or see the hand of our Creator move, see the spiritual answer to this arrogance and corruption. And here we are at this point that this story of Nebuchadnezzar tells. And the reason I'm talking without names is because this is about energy. This is about energy that's been corrupted. This is about energy that has no sense of empathy for life or for humanity itself. It is selfish and is self-serving. And the answer to it is the establishment of a kingdom of righteousness that is established by spirituality, and a kingdom, once it is established, that shall never perish. I see that very clearly because before there was interaction with Europeans, the kingdom of Mali and the kingdom of the Kushites were the first and strongest kingdoms on the face of the earth, and filled with achievements and civilization. After the overpowering or the invasion of Europeans into Africa, and those kingdoms were overthrown, there was seemingly no answer to them. And from that period until now, there has been a prevailing force of unrighteousness and uncivilized mindsets controlling the world. And now that there are those who have stepped into a place of understanding who they are, not just any group of people, but the children of Akabalon, seeking an understanding of who they are, and have become aware of the spiritual nature of their essence. And now we are at a place with this idea, this concept of Nebuchadnezzar, this concept of greed and this concept of corruption has come face to face with spirituality. And now that kingdom that has been established based on the foundation of corruption and violence is beginning to be dismantled, or is being dismantled as we speak. And the kingdom that is to be brought into existence by the Creator based upon spiritual principles is the kingdom that never shall fall. And that is our desire when we talk about bringing balance to humanity and ending the systemic racism that permeates this earth. So when we look at this story, I see it also in conjunction with what happened recently. during the period when Senator Cory Booker spoke for 25 plus hours. During the civil rights movement, Strom Thurmond spoke for 24 hours and I think 14 minutes or something like that. And that record of filibustering, bringing the Senate to a halt, that record was never broken. The reason he did it is because he was totally in favor of the subjugation of the children of Akebulon, people of African descent. And his desires were met. His desires were fulfilled, even though on paper they appeared not to be. When Cory Booker spoke for 25 plus hours, it is my belief that he repurposed the energy that Strom Thurmond had used during his filibuster. The repurposing of that energy is an encouragement to all of us that the things that Cory Booker was talking about or was put in the atmosphere or in the environment was about the challenges that all of us were facing with the current administrative energy that's in place right now. And that the energy that's in place right now is the same energy that Strom Thurmond used to do what he did and say what he said. And now that that energy has been repurposed by a child of Akebulon, that energy has been repurposed for humanity. So now the question becomes, how forceful are we going to be and how dedicated are we going to be to take that energy that has been repurposed and utilize it for the power and strength to maintain while we are going through the dismantling of this corrupt system. Our commitment, our desires will determine whether or not we let this energy fall by the wayside or whether we take hold of it, whether we embrace it, whether we allow our ancestors to guide us in how to utilize it. It is up to us to make those decisions. And I do believe that we've already made the decision that we are going to embrace the energy that has been repurposed for the express purpose of bringing balance to humanity. So when you ask that question about Nebuchadnezzar, it cannot be answered in a simple way by virtue of definition, because concepts and principles are not defined. They cannot be put in a box. Concepts are fluid. And the only way that I know how to answer a question about Nebuchadnezzar or any other question for that matter is to look at it through the eye of spirituality. And that's the eye through which I have been shown the correlation between this with Nebuchadnezzar, today's environment, as well as the comparison between Strom Thurmond and Cory Booker. Does that help you, Charles?
It helped a whole lot, Pastor, because when I read the story, and I read a lot more in it, and it was tugging on my heart that I needed, let you know about that.
Yeah.
And as you finished talking about it and letting me know, I understand it now.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions or comments about it? Does that make sense to you guys? Can you see that parallel?
I
This
can.
is
Yes.
Thank you.
this is Ramel. I have a question.
Mhm.
I understand it better, um, and it resonates. But my question, I want to make sure I have right is, we can repurpose the energy, but we can't shape how it should happen, right?
Right.
Okay.
Um, but let me make sure we're clear on reshaping, on shaping rather. We cannot sit down and write a list of things that are going to happen in order to bring balance to the earth. All we can do is have the desire and trust our spiritual natures, trust the idea of our having been deified or becoming aware of our divinity and allowing that divinity to guide our minds as well as to hear and move according to the energy of the universe and our ancestors. So when we cannot say that this is who is going to be in charge of reestablishing um, a nation, establishing a nation. Neither can we say this is what the nation is going to look like. But however, we can say that a nation uh, is formed for the express purpose of making sure that the people are taken care of in every aspect of life. But beyond that, we don't know what it's going to look like, not at this point. Does that help you, Pamela?
Tremendously.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I guess along those same lines is kind of how I felt when you said that, repurposing the energy and taking a look at that. It kind of got me a little excited. And the first thought that came to our mind is ask, for the thing we call wisdom and understanding so we can see what we need to ask for, see what we need to do and what direction to go in. So, but I like that. That was very clear to me.
Thank you, sir. I do believe, Ron, that we are in a spiritual space now where we are simply supposed to be still and never forget that we are divine. And the way we keep from forgetting is by expressing our understandings of spirituality, the wisdom of spirituality, when we come together in our discussions. Being still does not mean that you don't do anything. Being still also means that you are focused on your desire to become more and more aware of who you are in terms of divinity and how you are to function being that divine entity in this earth, especially when you are faced with non-civilized policies and attitudes. Any questions or comments about that?
Sage, could you expand on that a little bit?
Which part?
When the last part where you said when you're facing uncivilized.
Oh, yeah. What is your response to uncivilized policies and mindsets? That's what we are dealing with now. When you take into consideration, for example, the idea that a man was disappeared by this government. This government has always talked about how people were made to disappear in Nicaragua and other South American countries and never to be heard of again. And they are doing the same thing now in this country. Extreme rendition. This man was taken to El Salvador and put in prison. And the only response that his family received is it was an administrative glitch. And we can't get him back. If you took him, you can get him back. So what you're telling me is that this man's life is not even worth the trouble of admitting you made the mistake, but it's not worth the trouble if you corrected the mistake. So he has to be in one of the most dangerous prisons on the face of the earth, simply because you said that you made a mistake and that you broke the law because you did not give him the right to defend himself. So yet the same rights that you took away from him, Donald Trump used those rights to run the time out until he was elected to the presidency again, ending the pursuit to imprison him or to find him guilty of other felonies in addition to the 36. So when we look at that, what are we looking at? We're looking at non-civilized people. There is no way in the world that you can be civilized and be okay with that. That's what I'm talking about. I'm saying to you that out of all the uncivilized nations in Europe, especially, the most uncivilized nation on earth is the United States of America. And that is being shown through the mirror of those who are in charge of this government at this current time. And please understand, what they are doing is an amplification of what has always been happening behind the scenes. So in essence, what I am saying is this country has always functioned as an uncivilized entity on the earth. When you consider that the only thing that the European mindset has contributed to the earth are tools of destruction. Nothing that's progressive, division among humanity, and anything that it took to get what they wanted, regardless of how uncivilized it is. So, Vermeil, I hope that brings some clarity to what I meant by uncivilized policies and mindsets.
You did. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Questions or comments?
Well, the other thing, you talk about weapons of destruction, you have to include religion in that. That has been the destructive thing that has hit the earth. And it is so intertwined with the beings of humanity that it seems virtually impossible to separate those things. Because the more hardship, as we discuss this, that people go through, the more they will turn to their religion and looking for hope and not knowing that it is to their detriment.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I agree with you 100%. Matter of fact, our religion is more deadly than a bullet.
Yeah.
when you think about the whether it's Islam or Christianity, both tells you to look to God for your change. And while you're suffering here on earth, when you get to the other place, whether it be paradise in Islam or heaven in Christianity, that is when you're going to get your reward. So uh, religion has taught us to see poverty and suffering as a holy thing, as a righteous process. That could not be further from the truth. And one of the things that made it really stand out to me in that I've begun to look at what Christianity and Islam tells us, and seeing them do the leadership and do the opposite. God will, if you're hungry, you pray, God gonna make sure that you get fed. And at the same time, the one who's telling you that is taking the food away from you. When I listened at people who are Christian talk about how they could not, well, let me just put it this way. The question was raised, how is it that you can only be concerned about something that pertains to you or your friends and not about all of humanity? And that was in reference to the understanding that all of the thousands of people who came out in those demonstrations were out there because something was affecting them. And they never were out there for people of African descent, even though these same people are fighting for Hispanics not to be deported. And I agree with that 100%. But how can you do that with them and not us? Well, that was the question that was on the table. And one of the responses was, well, we are in America. And in America, we are individuals and we don't deal with things that don't directly affect us or our friends. And the retort to that was, so you don't believe that you're your brother's keeper. And silence came from that, was the response to that. However, I was talking about that with Ron, and he made a statement. He said they are Christians, and they really are, because that's how Christianity thinks. Christianity is selfish. If Christianity was not selfish, it would not be broken down into denominations. Christianity separates through denominations, while at the same time, it controls all of those denominations through the Vatican. So what I'm saying in essence is this. Christianity is dangerous because it tells you to suffer and look for nothing better than suffering until you die. And one of the statements that that Ron made during the course of discussion with some other people was that white people don't need God for nothing. And they can afford to talk about what God did for them because they already have everything. And that made plenty of sense to me. And quite frankly, that is one of the reasons why white people in general, that European mindset has no feelings for anyone except themselves. Yet they tell us that Christianity is just the opposite of that. Well, that only applies when it comes to us. In all other ways, Christianity for them is making sure that they have what they need to survive and making sure that they are in control of everything. So I say all of that to point out how the reason that I believe that Christianity and Islam are the most dangerous religions on earth, especially when it comes to the African, and the most violent religions on the earth. And both of them have their origin from the same belly of evilness. I'm done.
And maybe as I recall, the several of our meetings, uh, maybe the energy is already being repurposed as they reveal their true selves. You have a European mindset who claims to want righteousness. And I'm not questioning that at all from them, because I do believe the majority of them are sincere, because they keep coming back. Something is drawing them. But each time, ever since the weekend that we started, someone asked a question about community, they've been peeling away the layers of who they are and what they believe in. And that is no coincidence. Maybe that's the whole purpose of the meeting, that that honesty can be revealed and put in the macro as we are discussing this, and the repurposing has already taken place. So, because some of the things that were said were just pure honesty, or not thinking anything about it. This is who I am and this is what I believe in. And that those things need to be said and need to be discussed and need to be exposed more than anything else.
I agree with you 100%. I do believe that the primary purpose, well, first of all, let me explain. When we talk about the meeting, we meet with a group from the West Coast, and we do that once a month. We meaning the facilitators, some of us anyway. And I believe that and all of them are Europeans, and I believe that the reason that the creator orchestrated this is because, as Ron said, the honesty with which they speak now is in the macro, and our responses gives opportunity for those who are truly seeking to understand how things need to change, will be able to pick up or embrace what we put in the macro if they choose to. It's available there if they desire it. And I do believe that it is extremely beneficial, not only for those of us who are people of African descent, but for all of humanity, especially Europeans. It's available to them if they choose to embrace it. So anyway, that's how I see not only our discussions with the West Coast group, but also our understandings of Christianity and Islam. And the reason I leave Judaism out of it is because Judaism is simply a byproduct of both of those, and it really it is. If you look at Jew itself, or Judaism itself, if you look at the origin of the word Jew, you will see that it speaks to what it is. It speaks to what Judaism is. The word Jew, if you look at the etymology of that word, it is no different than the etymology of the word gypsy. And gypsies are called gypsies because they have been labeled to be thieves, manipulators, and any other negative thing that you could think of that seeks to enrich itself at the expense of others. And Jew means the same thing. So if you look at the etymology of it, then you will see that what Netanyahu is doing in Gaza is being a Jew. That's what that's what the etymology of the word tells us they do. But he's doing it on a grander scale than it has ever been done, and he's doing it because he has the assistance of the most corrupt nation on the earth, and that's America. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So
I think I see something though that you described here. Uh, the our meetings for last couple of years or however long it's been with California, uh, the discussion tonight with Nebuchadnezzar and what we're seeing in the political world across the world, all these things we are looking at, and I think a young lady yesterday gave us, excuse me, a very clear picture of what the God of this world looks like. Uh, and we are coming face to face with it and dismantling it. And the arrogance, the greed, the selfishness, the desire for money and more and more and more, as what an old man named the senator
Trump,
no, keep running for office. Uh, anyway, as he said, he was talking about money and all the things that they're doing in Washington. He's like, how much do you need? How much money do you actually need? You have everything. Sanders, Bernie Sanders. And so the God of this world is being exposed to us to see and dismantle. And that includes the weapons and the weaponry and all the other fear tactics and things that are put out there to kind of hold people in place. So this is amazing to me. That kind of reminds what Barb said. We got them right where we want them, and this thing is happening right before us. And I think the picture is becoming clearer and clearer.
I agree. I think it is.
Before you speak, before you speak to that, Ray, help me to understand. Help me to understand this question. Almost like Vern is saying, you're saying like they're taking the truth and twisting it into a lie, or they're taking the lies, twisted into a truth.
This is what's happening, Charles. Is what's always happened. They sprinkled just enough truth in it to make it sound like it's right. It's a total lie. There is no such thing as partly a lie. You can't be halfway pregnant. You're either pregnant or you're not. And you're lying or you're not. And what we are experiencing and have been experiencing is a multitude of lies that we have been engulfed in and have been forced or manipulated to embrace as the truth. And simply because we have embraced it as the truth at one time until we know what the truth is, it does not mean that it was ever the truth. It's simply that we didn't know any better. And our awareness now is bringing us to a place where we are able to see a lie for what it is. Now, there's one thing to see a lie for what it is, but it's a totally different thing to have the courage to say it. It takes courage to say that Christianity is detrimental to humanity. It takes courage to say that Islam is detrimental to humanity. It takes even more courage to say the worst thing that ever happened to Africans is Islam and Christianity. It takes courage for that. And if you take both of those enslavement tools Christianity and Islam, and you look at what happened to bring them to the forefront. In order to bring them to the forefront, there had to be efforts put forth to demonize the spirituality of Africa, the spiritual beliefs of Africa, to call voodoo evil, to call seeking direction from the ancestors demonic. All of the things that have been in existence for millions of years for the African, all of a sudden became demonic because of the tongue of white folks. Now that we are beginning to see that, it takes courage to speak to that. And it takes even more courage to say that Judaism is a bastardized religion. Because it uses Judah as its foundation. And there is absolutely nothing to connect Jew to Judah. Absolutely nothing. If you look up the etymology of the word Judah, you will find praise. If you look up the etymology of the word Jew, you will find thief. What is the connection? What is it to connect those two? That's the lie that we have become aware of.
I see. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
About 3 months ago, we talked about having the seat at the table. We wanted to be a part of that. And then you had made mention that we are the table. So what we are putting out there, is that the same thing as us being the table by people, by what we're doing is resonating with people?
Yeah,
Does that make sense what I'm saying?
It does. My comments about that were based upon something. I think Kathy was the one was talking about. We want a seat at the table, but we are the table that we want to see and the seat too. Now, this is how I see this since we have discussed that, since that time that we discussed that rather, is that we are indeed the table. And in order for humanity to become a balanced entity, it's going to have a seat with us. It has to sit down with us. So not only are we the table, we are the nourishment that comes from the table. Not only are we the nourishment that comes from the table, we are the balance in the earth that brings forth the nourishment to be set on the table. And we are the servers of that nourishment, as well as we are the ones who are to teach people how to feast at that table. Because right now, the table that people are looking to have a seat at is the table of deception. And it is a table that does not exist for the benefit of anyone who is not European and racist. When you get a seat at that particular table, you're only sitting there because they want to know what you're thinking so they can decide how they're going to deal with you. They don't care about what you want, and they don't care about your ideas about how to bring things to a place of balance. They only care about what you are thinking so they can determine how they're going to deal with you. That's it. So this whole idea of a table and have a seat at the table, I see it totally different as we have become more aware of who we are and our purpose for being in this earth. Does that help you, Evelyn?
It does. And by us giving the nourishment that mankind needs, the food will have to be pulled off. I'm talking about the physical food. will have to be pulled off the shelf because they can no longer, mankind will not be able to eat that type of food.
Let's go back to that, Evelyn.
I
Let me
can't-
go back to that before you go any further.
Okay.
What
Okay.
I'm talking about is spiritual food. And
Correct.
the food will not come off any shelf. Neither will it change in its sustenance until spiritual food is ingested and changes the mindset. And that mindset must have a sense of empathy and sympathy for humanity. And that mindset must be devoid of greed and corruption. Otherwise, the same elements in that food remain. However, we can avoid the damage of that food by virtue of our desires and understanding who we are. You don't have control at this moment of what goes into the food. However, you do have control of what the food can do to you. Does that make sense?
Well, that's what yeah. You clarified what I was trying to say. Yes.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Now, tell me about the food that God provides for the Israelite, like manna. Is that the same thing that we talking
first of
about
all,
now?
Yes. First of all, let's look at this spiritually. This is not talking about Israelites. That is a corruption of the translation, okay? This is talking about, when you read that, it is talking about the spiritual food that is prepared for those who function as gods in the earth. Those who Israel means, oh God, come on. Help me, someone.
The double crosser?
No, that's Hebrew.
Hebrew.
Israel, El is God. Those who would rule as God, or those who set boundaries as God, will
Prince
as
of
God.
God or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's talking about the spiritual food that is provided for those who are gods in the earth. And what we do when we are talking about truth, that is the manna. That is the food. When it talks about the manna tastes like whatever you desire it to taste like, that is no different than everyone hearing in their own language. Whatever you need from that food, from that manna, whatever you need from this spiritual understanding, that is what you receive to sustain you. No matter what we talk about and how clear we are with truth, it strikes people in different ways. People receive different aspects of it, and they see it based upon their circumstances. Yet they are seeing the same thing that all of us are seeing when we say that something resonates, or when we understand it. It affects us in different ways. Does that make sense? And that's not just a
Yes.
charge. Okay. So when we start talking about the things that we were talking about prior to our understanding that the scriptures are an allegory, before that we did not understand that what it meant when it says that all scripture is spiritual. So the truth is hidden in plain sight, in the midst of the scriptures. And now we are able to see with a clearer eye what is actually being said to us as people in the earth. Now, whether we accept it or not, that's a whole different thing. For example, I'm going to tell you how crazy things are. You tell somebody in the Dominican Republic that they're Black or that they're African, they'll argue with you. You tell the Puerto Rican that they're African, they'll argue with you. It's a funny thing how people, the most people who are Spanish speaking deny their African heritage and look in the mirror and look just like us. So the question is, why? Because they chose not to accept it. There's no way you're going to tell me that out of all that's been happening in this world for at least the last 10 years, that you've not gotten to a place or you've not come across anything that shows you the origin of your being. Simply because you call yourself Dominican, or in Puerto Rico, call yourself a Puerto Rican, or call yourself a Caucasian when you look like me, it doesn't matter what you call yourself. What matters is where you came from. What are your roots? That's what matters. Otherwise, you are in denial. Why is it that everyone on this earth can recognize the land base of their origin except the African? We are the only ones who are in denial of our origin. And if you don't know where you came from, you don't know who you are. And if you don't know who you are, you sure as hell don't know where you're going. And you are subject to anything happening to you, and you are susceptible to embracing anything that's detrimental to you because you don't know who you are. You are lost. You have no direction. You are wandering in a wilderness that is dangerous to you because you are not seeking anything that will help you to see who you are. Does that make sense?
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
Yes, it makes sense.
Yes.
It keeps you from ruling like God.
To keep you, yes, keep you from all of that. It is imperative to embrace who you are. If it was not important for us to embrace who we are, then why is it that it is so difficult? And why is it made, rather, so difficult for us to connect with all Africans in the diaspora as well as those on the continent? Why? Why is that so difficult? Why are there so many barriers to that? Because everyone knows where the power is. And the power is not in the money. The power is in spirituality. And everyone knows that. Who is in power, of course. When you don't embrace who you are the weakest one in the earth. And anything can be done to you. Now, we are at a place where we are able to be the protectors of everyone in the earth. Are you with me so far? Because I'm going to tell you something in a moment.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Every one of us is a scapegoat. Do you believe that?
Keep
And
going.
I want to know why you saying it first.
I want to know where you think you are.
I want to know.
We have been told, we have been taught so wrong about what a scapegoat is. The scapegoat has been taught to as being something negative, something that you wanted to avoid because it's full of sin, right? Yes, you're right, James. However, it is far more than that. A scapegoat is one who takes all the blame from others, who takes the burdens of humanity onto itself. The scapegoat is the one who takes the responsibility for humanity, for society. It does indeed take all the entanglements of the world, racism, Christianity, hatred, all of that, all the pain. And it carries all of this negative energy into the wilderness. And it takes all this pain for the purpose of redeeming all other people, humanity. The scapegoat is the redeemer of humanity, because the scapegoat carries all of this into the wilderness. And in the wilderness, the scapegoat becomes more and more aware of who it is. And it is able to carry the burdens of humanity. It is able to redeem humanity by virtue of repurposing the energy so that the entanglements, the pain, the corruption, all of that, humanity can be freed from it. The blinded eyes can be opened. The ones who are weighted down with hatred and entanglements, their burdens are lifted, and now they can walk again without having to crawl. The poverty, the murder, everything is on the back of the scapegoat. And as we stand as the vanguard for humanity, for change, for balance, for humanity, we are scapegoats. Because what are we doing? We have made a decision to be burden bearers. So in our wilderness, we're able to repurpose that energy, and from it we gain strength, not for ourselves, but for us to sustain ourselves in the midst of the chaos, so we can be a continuous process of redemption. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. We are indeed scapegoats. If it were not for us being a scapegoat, then nothing would ever change, because everything will remain as it is. There has to be something to change it. In the scriptures, it said Aaron laid his hands on the head of the goat and pronounced all the sins of the nation. And then they sent that goat into the wilderness. And Ron asked the question, what happens to the goat when the goat gets in the wilderness? And I'm saying that Aaron the priest puts his hand on the scapegoat. And I'm saying that the ancestors have put their hands on us. The Creator has put its hands on us. The cosmic mother has put her trust in us and laid their hands on us, meaning that has granted us the authority to usurp all of the energy of evil and pain and suffering and bring it to our shoulders and readily take it into the wilderness. And no, we don't die in the wilderness. We bring life to the wilderness by virtue of transforming all of that energy. And that is what strengthens humanity to the place where humanity says no more. Any questions about that or comments?
Just a quick comment. We bring life to the wilderness, but we also bring wisdom out of the wilderness, don't we?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I had not seen that. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what the transformation does indeed.
Yeah. But quick question though, it sounds like the standing in the gap would be the same thing. Because you take on whatever is coming through the gap.
Yes.
But the scapegoat sounds a little more intense.
It much more intense.
Yeah.
It really is.
Okay.
See, I've said this without really understanding the depth of it. I've said it in the past that nothing could come to you guys unless it come through me, because I'm your covering. You've heard me say that before. I never understood it the way I see it now. We are the covering for humanity. That's who we are. That's who we are. So now, do you see, Evelyn? Do you think you're a scapegoat? Since you said you wanted to wait
I'll
to
be
see.
the goat. I'll be the goat. I'm in this now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Seriously though, are there any
Yes, I do
questions?
have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, are we the gatekeepers for mankind also?
See, all of these things in the scriptures are there because people hear in different ways. All of these things we are, yes. We are the gatekeeper. You can't be a covering if you're not a gatekeeper. If you are the covering, that means that you are the one who is the protector of the sheep, right? So you man the gate
Yes.
through which the sheep pass. So nothing can get past you to the sheep. So you are the keeper of the gate. So the wolves cannot get past you. Yes, we are gatekeepers. Yes, we are standing in the gap. Yes, we are scapegoats. All of those things. Yes, we stand. We stand on the wall, rebuilding the wall with the tool of righteousness in one hand and the weapon of truth in the other hand. That's who we are. We are all of that.
So is that also a watcher?
All of that. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. If we were not watchers, if we were not adamant about being watchers, we would not be able to look at what's being said and what's happening and see the truth that's not being spoken. So we are able to see all of that that is not being said. For example, the stock markets. Yes, people are losing money, but they don't care. What are they doing? Why is it that these tariffs are doing what they're doing? They are killing the stock market so that the sell-offs are cheaper, and the billionaires are buying up cheap stock. And as soon as they get what they want, Trump is going to lift all these tariffs. And the rich are getting richer, and those with 401ks are getting poorer. Does that make sense? That's what a watcher does. Any other questions or comments?
So, Pastor, so that's why creation is doing what it's doing, acting like it's acting. It not only it doing it to the planet, it's doing it to us too, trying to wake us up to do what we're supposed to do, like you're talking about, being that scapegoat and all them watchers.
Creation is
And
not trying to wake us up, Charles. No, sir. Creation is not trying to wake us up. We have to be the ones who wake creation up. We were told that we are to dominate, were we not?
yes,
Creation is responding to the dominant energy in the earth currently. We are the ones who have to wake up first. And the reason I know we are awake is because you never heard anything about a woke generation or people being woke, being that being a badge of shame. You never heard anything about that until we start talking about being aware of who we are. And that meant that we were awakened. Does that make sense, guys?
Yes.
That meant
yes.
that we are
Yes,
awakened.
sir.
Yes.
And being awakened is extremely important. If it were not, there would be no railing against it. Just because people don't understand what they are saying, it does not mean that they subconsciously are not recognizing what's taking place. When they say being woke, they have no spiritual connotations to that because that European mindset has no spirituality anyway. It just responded to something that it feels that is threatening its position of power. Does that make sense? Any other
Yes.
questions or comments about that? Thank you.
I'm, I want to ask, is that why, if we choose to get out there and protest, is that part of the reason why Trump might declare martial law? Because if we're the scapegoat, he's going to do whatever to heap all of that on us.
I believe it's more than that, Evan. I mean, Evan, Audrey.
Do you understand my question?
The ancestors won't let us go out there because the ancestors are telling us that the weapons of your warfare are not carnal. The weapon of your warfare is not marching in the street carrying a picket sign. Those who have castigated you for doing that and lied to you when you did it and pretended that you got something from it, let them carry the signs because now you know who you are. The weapons of your warfare are not carnal, they're spiritual. And the spiritual weapon is being aware of who you are. So now that you know who you are, you don't have to leave your home to protest. You don't have to be in those streets to change anything. Because when you were in the streets, nothing changed except your health because they beat the hell out of you. That's all that changed. But now what changes while you being home is the mindset because it is having an adverse effect on the very ones who benefited from your demise, who benefited from the racism that's in this country. So much so until they when people talk about reverse racism, what is the reverse of racism? Help me, somebody.
No racism?
No racism. So how in the world can white folk talk about reverse racism? That's an impossibility. They're the ones who brought racism into existence. And racism is a system. So if you have a system that is racist and you got reverse racism, that means the system is no longer racist. So that in itself is a bald-faced lie. Just like everything else is. So why do our ancestors are saying, sit still. Travel if you want to. Watch the stories. Go out to lunch. Hang out with your friends. But make sure you're back on Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Our ancestors are the ones who have silenced us. Don't forget, y'all, that Martin Luther King said, one of my greatest regrets, and I paraphrase him, is I believe I've integrated my people into a burning house. Guess what? The one who said that is an ancestor now. Can you feel that presence?
Yeah.
The one who said that is an ancestor. The one who stood up and talked about the power of Islam to save us is an ancestor now. Malcolm is an ancestor now. He knows that Islam is a bastardized religion. He knows that it is a method of colonization by Arabs. So these are the ancestors. Bertrand Russell, the architect of the march in 1963. Bertrand Russell he is now an ancestor. So all of these people who have walked this pathway are ancestors. Bill Jones is an ancestor now. All of these people who were Pan-Africanists who did not want anything to do with white folk, period, are ancestors now. So they see clearer than they have ever seen, and they are guiding us and saying, sit on your butt. Don't walk on your feet. Look at all the thousands of people who were in the streets last weekend and not one soldier was seen. There were no National Guards out there. Policemen were far, few, and in between. If we had been out there, the violence of the policemen would have been turned on us, and we would be portrayed as the ones being violent. The ancestors said, not this time. Why would the ancestors do that now? Why is it that the universe is guiding us in this direction now? Why is that so? Have you asked yourself that? Why? If we were not aware of who we are, if we have not embraced who we are as the seed of a Kabbalah, if we have not embraced the femininity of the cosmic mother, we would not be where we are now. We would be in the streets. But because of the wisdom, that reservoir of wisdom that we are drawing from, we don't have to send out a memo. The message, the memo is sent to us in a still, small voice. Make sense, guys?
Very
Yes,
clear.
sir.
Oh, yes.
Very much
Yes.
so.
Yes.
That's who we are, and that's where we are. Any questions?
And
Go ahead.
Pastor,
Yeah.
thank God that you mentioned the feminine energy, because the feminine energy is keeping us safe from any harm. That's the only way I can see it and feel it.
Well, it is. It is. It is. Look at what I'm saying. The voice of the African woman is being heard like it's never been before. Has it not? I mean, is it not? I saw an interview with Maya Angelou from some years ago. And they asked her, did she feel like she was a part of the middle class, the upper middle class? And she says, what are you asking me? Are you middle class? You have money. She says, I have money, but it does not mean I'm middle class. She says, I have money, but one phone call and I have nothing. So I'm no different than any other African American in this country, was her word. Can you see that? There's no such thing as that with us. We are who we are. The whole. I'm gonna show you how juvenile the thinking of white women is, in particular. Well, not all white women, of course, but a lot of them. This white woman went to the march over the weekend, and she said that she took her child with her. And she said it would have been better if they had a bouncy castle and some singing. How juvenile? Your child got bored, so you going to protest people being shipped out of this country without due process. You going to protest people being terminated from their jobs for no reason. You going to protest people being taken off of Medicaid, Medicare. You going to protest all of these things that are detrimental to humans, and you want a bouncy castle for your child? How juvenile is that? You can't tell me one African woman who would have thought that. She could have 50 kids and she wouldn't have thought that. That never would have crossed her mind. That shows you how out of touch with humanity that mindset is. And that is the reason they are easily slaughtered by the men who say they protect them. I'm done if there are no questions or comments.
Pastor, I have a comment. but it's not about what we talked about. But then it is. It's not a comment. I just want to say to the Faith family, thank you, thank you, thank you. I don't know if Mary is on the line or not, but for the energy that you sent, the Faith family sent toward us on Saturday. It was totally something different than I've ever experienced. But thank you for your energy and your condolences. We had a beautiful day. And again, the energy was just different than ever. So I appreciate you all. I love y'all and I love us. Thank you guys so much. That's all I want to say.
You're welcome.
Shay.
Oh, Shay. Okay. If there's nothing else to claim our attention, I bid you a good evening.
One question, Rev.
Okay,
I've been hearing this. I've been hearing what y'all been saying about Ashe. What does that mean?
so let it be.
So let it be. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Well, let me say this, Charles. It means that, but it has a deeper meaning also, okay? Because you
Okay.
that has been said. We could get delve deeper into that at some time, okay?
All right.
Thank you. Good night. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank
Good
you.
night,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone.
Take care.
Good night.
Have a
Thank
good-
you.